Hello there. You know, being old, I got to contemplating something. I was contemplating my high school days. And then that got me up to 1963 when I graduated. And I took off in my old Ford, 53 Ford, and I went down all through Colorado, down across Texas, through Childress, Texas, and that down to Louisiana and through there to Tallahassee, Florida. And I got stopped in Tallahassee, Florida to see an old girlfriend that I'd had in high school, my junior year. And I visited there for, a couple of weeks. And then I wound up in Huntsville, Alabama, where they was working on the Redstone project in them days. And that was right in the time of hootenannies and stuff. That was pretty fun. And then I wound up in New York, out on Long Island, Queens, where my sister-in-law lived. Her family lived. And my car broke down, so I wound up taught a Greyhound bus and rode it across the states back home to Utah. That was quite an adventure. I was home a couple of weeks, got bored, and asked my mother if I could borrow her car. I went down to see the Navy recruiter. Well, I joined the Navy, 1963. In October of 63, I had graduated from boot camp, and that was when that President Kennedy was assassinated down there in Texas. But after that, I wound up out on an old carrier and going out in the Pacific. And in 65, that's when Johnson sent the troops into Vietnam. That's when things started going to pot. You know, I sat there and I went through there, and by 67, I've told you before, I knew we wasn't supposed to be there messing in them people's business. By the time that was over, they dumped all that Agent Orange all over to kill all the flora and fauna that they could, so that they could quit them Viet Cong from hiding. I guess that's what it was supposed to do. But anyway, and they'd had all that other stuff over there. Well, and them guys over there got in and got into all them drugs, that heroin and opium and stuff. Oh, and you know, if you watch some of them old movies about Vietnam, smoking the weed and all that kind of stuff all over the place, well, they brought that home, and guess what? That started, besides all that stuff, with the having all them deals about people not liking the war, or having them guys go across the border into Canada to avoid the draft and everything, protesting that war. Well, we got that war on drugs. Wow. You know, when I was talking, it's got me back to thinking about that video I made, the last one I made, talking about the corruption in Washington, D.C. Now, if you sit there and you look, we had problems. That goofy McCarthy back there and having that about the communists and blacklisting all them people in Hollywood that were communists and everything. But that, you know, in the United States of America, that's always been. The big trouble has been the erosion of the constitutional values by the progressives that hate liberty. They don't want anybody to be free. Okay, and I got to looking at it. You know that old movie, an old story about Robin Hood? Well, my favorite movie was that old Errol Flynn one I guess it was out of the 1940s. But Errol Flynn was Robin Hood. Well, that was an upbeat kind of movie. When you got into these newer ones, Kevin Costner made a good one, but it was too dark. Then you got that other guy made one after that, and it was really darker. So I don't care for that stuff. But you know, that Star Wars, I got thinking about that. You look at that Robin Hood movie, and you look at that Star Wars, and then you look at that Emperor, and you look at that Darth Vader. And I look at all this stuff with them wars going on all over. They started in Korea, they went to Vietnam, wound up down in Kuwait. Can't remember. Reagan had that little thing out there in them islands, see, but he just sent somebody in and pulled it back. And then there was that other thing over there with that guy and Gaddafi over there. That was just an attack with a few missiles, pulled back. But you got all these guys that want this war. Well, you know, if you get to look at that Biden the way he's walking around right now, you put one of them things on him, one of them robes with one of them things, you know, he could pass for that Emperor in that Star Wars, the original 3 of that Star Wars. I ain't sure, but there's a lot of them guys back there. What? There's some of them guys over there in that Pentagon, you know, them big 5 that's the chiefs of staff and that. There's undoubtedly one of them that thinks he's Darth Vader. You know, and if you look at the concept of liberty, individual liberty, and you look at the states they were set up, but the Constitution being independent, sovereign nations, countries that join together in a union, and you consider that, and you look back and you see what's happened, you see the corruption, you see all the stuff that's come along ever since it started out between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and the Federalists and the Jeffersonian Democrats back there, and John Adams said, and it comes up through, gets to the Civil War. That's when they got the idea that the states, we come up with that one nation under God. Well, that's a falsehood. It's a flat out lie. If you look and pay attention and study and read, that's a flat out lie. Because there are 50 sovereign nations joined together in a union. And no matter what all these progressives and everything say, see, it was the progressives. It was back there, got that Federal Reserve Bank, got Wilson in as president, got us into World War I, got us all coming along, see? Pay attention. Go read, study, pay attention. They got us coming in. Well, it's come through the whole thing. It's a cancer that has just ruined the United States. Now, liberty is the thing that's important, because that's where that thing in the Declaration of Independence says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all mankind, are created equal and endowed by their Creator, whoever they believe that is, with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now you got to consider, Stalin had his rights. Hitler had his rights. FDR had his rights. But we had the Constitution. We were supposed to control him. Gotta figure, But I got my rights. That woman over there's got her rights. What's this big deal about Title IX now and about abortion and everything? Consider what the rights are. Consider what individual liberty is. Think about it. Pay attention. I'll be back. May God bless you all.